All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us at our SOFtoSOM webinar. We really appreciate you guys coming. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. My name is Dave. I'm the mentorship director. Matt, can you hit the slide? Can you hit the slide, Matt? Good deal. So for this webinar, we're going to cover introductions. We're going to talk about the application timeline, the whole application cycle, common obstacles for all applicants, some obstacles that are specific to veterans and other guys from our community, and then how SOFtoSOM came together and addresses these obstacles. We're going to finish up with some common questions and a couple of questions from you guys. Next slide. All right, Matt, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It's great to have all of you here and to hear a little bit about the journey to medical school and what SOFtoSOM is doing. So I am a former infantry officer on the conventional side and currently a third-year medical student at Duke University. I'm in my research year and loving it.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. My name is Dave Cantong. I'm a Special Forces medic, and I'm applying next cycle. Currently, I'm on the staff at SOFtoSOM, and I'm serving as the mentorship director. Good to have you guys here.
How's it going, guys? I'm Zach. I'm one of the marketing directors for SOFtoSOM. I was a Special Forces medic, just retired this year, and I start medical school next year at West Virginia University. Glad to have you.
All right, thanks, guys. Can you hit the slide, Matt? Okay. So the AMCAS is the application that is common for the allopathic path. If you look, this is an overview of the timeline. So it'll start in May and end the following summer, depending on when the school starts. But generally, the applications open in May. At that time, you can begin filling out all of your data, and you can submit. It's typically the 30th of May or June 1st. And Matt's going to cover after this the emphasis on applying early. Depending on when you apply, your application will be verified within 4 to 8 weeks after that, and then you'll start receiving secondary applications, right? The sooner your application is complete and you've submitted the secondary applications, that's when you can start receiving interviews. So mid-August all the way through potentially March is when applications or interviews happen. And I believe October is the first date that you can be notified of your acceptance. Yeah, and that's it for the overview. So Matt's going to hit the next slide and talk a little bit more in depth about the nuances of applying timeline.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dave. And yeah, I agree. Applying early, in my opinion, is the #1 thing that you can do to set yourself up for success, barring that you've met all the other prerequisites, which I'll go over shortly. And so this is a really nice diagram because what it shows you is it shows you the whole application cycle, but also between what's possible and what's preferred and what's ideal. So in this case, The MCAT, you could take it all the way from the September before you apply all the way till December of the current cycle. It takes about a month to get your score back. So if you take it in September and you get your score back a month later and it's October, you have really a month and some change to get your primary application in. And you can see down that time, people are already have submitted their primary, they've submitted their secondaries, interviews have already been happening, and admissions process. So if there's one thing you take away from this side, is that when the application cycle opens in May, be prepared and be ready on day one. So some common obstacles for all applicants. And as you know, prerequisites, do you meet the prerequisite minimums for medical school? That is something that is on everybody's mind. And one of the things, in my opinion, the solution for it is, if you haven't heard of MSAR, go ahead and save that right now and check it out later. This is published by AAMC. Every medical school in the nation that is on the allopathic side submits to this, and they put exactly what their scores are of accepted and matriculant applicants. They put GPA. They tell you a little bit about their application process. They tell you exactly what they're looking for in a candidate. And so it behooves you to go ahead and go through this and really create a list of schools that you're interested in, your target schools, and identify what are the exact requirements. Schools vary in requirements, and a lot of schools are transitioning to holistic applications. And what that means is, they're not just looking at, okay, who are the top MCAT scores? They're looking at, okay, do you have the didactic foundation, which is generally demonstrated with your GPA and your MCAT score? But then what else do you bring to the table, and how are you going to change the face of medicine? And so by identifying those prereqs, you can set yourself up for success prior to starting the cycle. Next thing is MCAT. Everybody has to take the MCAT if you want to be a doctor, unfortunately. These exams are difficult, but if there's one solution that I could say that is applicable to everybody, is to take it when you're ready. I've countered multiple people that have said, okay, I'm going to take it by X date. And then they force themselves to take it by that date before they're ready. And then they do not score what their score goal is. And so what you can do is you can say, okay, there's a number of exams that are given by all types of prep programs. There's also the AAMC practice exams. There's a body of literature online. You can read all about it, which ones are closest to the actual MCAT. But what I would recommend is use those practice exams as benchmarks and track your progress. And then you can take the exam when you're ready to take it and you're already in the score range that you want to achieve. The last thing, I think, the common obstacles for all applicants is really being able to explain to the admissions committee why medicine. Did you wake up one day and say, I want to be a doctor for whatever reason? Or was there something that is more deeper, that is a sense of calling? Do you have a calling to serve patients? And so one of the things that I think is difficult to really interpret is there's a lot of checklists, there's a lot of blogs, there's a lot of podcasts that talk about you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to get a medical school. I disagree with that. I think that all of those things are important. But if you can have the didactic foundation shown through prereqs and MCAT, and you can articulate carefully why medicine, and you can reflect on those experiences to explain how you as an individual will contribute to improving patient care, I think that's the most important thing. And so if you, 1 month before you apply, do 50 hours of shadowing versus somebody who has shadowed or volunteered once a month for 3 years straight, that longitudinal impact is arguably more beneficial and better able to articulate why medicine. Some common obstacles to veterans. One is the mindset. And I say this because all three of these things are things that I've personally struggled with, and that a lot of my friends who are also veterans have struggled with. One is rushing to the starting line. We feel that we've already had a career and we need to start our career immediately. The issue with that, though, is a lot of people have spent sometimes their whole undergraduate and even high school careers preparing to apply to medical school. And all of the prereqs are really hard to cram in a condensed time frame. And it's also hard to cram and do all of them at the same time and do them well. You can't take, once you get a grade on a class, that grade is permanent, and that grade will be carried with you for the rest of your life. And so rushing to the starting line is one of the things that you're going to have to accept if this is the career path that you're interested in pursuing. The other thing I'd say is, and this is very similar to rushing to the starting line, is realizing that you are starting over again. A lot of people, especially people in special operations, they've gone through basic training, they've gone through their soft training. They now have leadership opportunities. Some people have stood up clinics. Some people have done some really amazing things. And when you're starting over again and you're taking the prereq classes, you're starting over from the beginning. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow in some cases, but I think there's actually a silver lining, because one of the benefits is that you have all these experiences that make you an applicant that that stands out in a lot of ways. You have experiences that other people just do not have. And recognizing that, I think, makes you a fantastic applicant and being able to explain why medicine. The other thing is people are younger. People don't have the experiences, and sometimes, especially when we're on highly efficient teams, we have high expectations of our peers and the people that we work with, and so we hold ourselves to high standards, and we hold others next to us high standards, because oftentimes, and if you're in the military, they can be life and death situations. And so if we hold those same standards to our younger peers that haven't had those experiences, sometimes it can create a friction. And one of the things that I've tried to really switch in my mind is instead, it's okay that they haven't had experiences, but instead I can use my experiences to mentor other people that don't have them. And so I think that's a mindset change that can be a strength, depending on how you look at it. The family can be an obstacle. And what I mean by that is oftentimes people that are applying straight out of undergrad, they don't have families, they don't have children, they don't have mortgages, they don't have all these other things that do not stop once you start medical school. And so I think the local support system that you have from your family is a huge benefit. Also, one of the other obstacles is that if you have a family and you want to stay in a specific area, that kind of confines you to that geographical region. And so instead of being able to apply to any school and be able to move, some people, they can do that, but others can't. And that limits the amount of schools that they can apply to. And so that's why going back to MSAR and figuring out the schools that are within your region, what their prereqs are, what they look for in an applicant, reaching out to the school and explaining your background and your situation. That's one of the ways that you can overcome that obstacle. The last thing that I'll say is really the MCAT and GPA. The reason why is because I've seen quite a few veterans and myself included thinking that, okay, well, I was a veteran, I was in the military, so therefore people should just, kind of accept me for, whatever I bring to the table. Well, I think that's true in some ways, but the point of the GPA and the MCAT is really to demonstrate to a school that you have the didactic science background to be successful. And through your grades and scores, yes, there's a range. If you look at MSAR, schools have sometimes range from a 500 all the way up to a 520, right? So there is a range, but at the same time, this is the way that you still have to show that you're not going to be an academic risk in school. And it's more difficult when you have a lot of other obstacles, a lot of other things that you're managing on your plate, family responsibilities, life responsibilities, sometimes job responsibilities, to still dedicate the same amount of time to get a 4.0 and get a 520, right? So I'm not saying that you have to do those things in order to be successful, but what I'm saying is don't overlook the importance of the GPA and MCAT as a part of your application. And so when we say can you and will you, I think Dave and Zach both really believe in. So if y'all want to chime in and just really hit this home, go for me.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say, Matt, you covered everything. I would just view it also as like the language of the team, right? So each organization, each small team has a different language and different things that they value. So you can be very good at one thing, but if you don't speak that language of the team, you're not going to be accepted. And so for adcoms and medical schools, their language is your GPA and your MCAT, at least initially. And then they'll look beyond you know, your initial numbers to see the rest of you. But you still have to speak that first language to them.
And I'll just add on to it. I remember when Matt was giving me a similar talk about 2 years ago, and I was looking at all these requirements and family and MCAT scores, and I just did my pre-test and I didn't do so well, and I was just basically looking at an uphill mountain. And just don't get discouraged when you see these things, you see all these lists, all these requirements. Don't get discouraged. Don't self-select. Even though there are obstacles, many have overcome it. Be positive and enjoy the journey, because it's a long one.
And so far, it's been a rewarding one too, I must say. Thank you both. So now is the time to share our stories. So who wants to go first?
I can go first. Yep. So I was still active duty at 3rd Special Forces Group, and I met Zach in I think we were in an advanced physiology or a microbiome class. But I was taking classes at night. A lot of us do at Campbell University, is there at Bragg. And yeah, it just felt like a grind, but this was the goal and started working towards that. Fast forward a couple of years, I run into Justin at another office, and then he involves me in this, he pulls me in this group chat, and it's just a bunch of guys trying to go to med school from our community. And it really paid off for me in ways that are kind of not apparent at first, but really, I think if I had to sum it up, it'd be you're with guys that you trust and that you can actually relate to, because they've lived some of your past experience and they're going through this journey that you're trying to go through. And the biggest advice that I received from these guys wasn't like a pro tip for the MCAT or how to memorize a formula, for my chemistry or my biochem class or anything like that. It was advice like, hey, if you apply right now, you have a lot to offer, but this isn't your strongest application. So you're rolling the dice this year if you apply. If you take the MCAT right now, you're probably going to get this score. It's just guys that can give you honest feedback in your best interest that have already done the thing that you're trying to do. So that's where I am now, and I'm applying next cycle.
I'll go second. And yeah, Dave nailed it on the head. The objective view that you get from the group is the most important thing, aside from like the networking and being able to discuss where you're at in the process, because we've all been there. We all come from similar backgrounds. Sometimes you'll be doing your MCAT, at least not for me, you'll be doing your MCAT prep, and one day you'll score 512 and you're like, oh, I'm ready for the test. And then the next day you'll get a 502 and you're like, oh, should I take the MCAT today? And the group will be like, your averages don't say you should. So Dave really hit the nail on the head. The objective view and insight and help that you get from the group is amazing. My story, so I got out of the military about a year and some change ago, and I decided no safety net, nothing was going to save me. I'm going to med school, no plan, no exit strategy. I just got out and started taking classes. With Dave, I took about 56 credit hours in a single year, which is roughly about a year and a half's worth of college credits in a summer and winter class, all to get ready for the application cycle. So like what Matt was saying earlier, was I was rushing to the starting line or to the finish line. I was trying to get all these grades in, and though I was doing really well, they were 8-week classes. So my foundation wasn't as solid as students who had been doing 16-week courses over the last 4 years. I did 8-week classes in a year and a half to meet the prereq deadline in time for application. So when I took that MCAT early, I think I was just introduced to SOFtoSOM in the chat, and I took the first MCAT, and I did not do what I was looking for. I didn't meet my goal score. Ultimately, I had to go through the whole application cycle an additional year. And that, I'm one of the reapplicants that can say, just because you have to take the MCAT twice, I think so somebody else in there might have taken the MCAT twice as well. I'm not sure. I don't know everybody's story, but there's still hope. Like, you'll go on Reddit, you'll go on other stuff, and you'll say, don't be a reapplicant, don't be a retester. That's not true. Just keep moving forward. And that's what I told myself. So I did that. I reapplied, retook the MCAT, studied appropriately. I took Matt's guidance, took Ricky. I'm not sure if Ricky's here anymore, but I took a bunch of people's guidance, and I followed the program set by SOFtoSOM from start to finish. And I got the goal that I was looking for, and I start medical school in 6 months in West Virginia. Dream school, couldn't ask anything better. So I think that's my story, and I think that might be somebody else's story as well. With that, also, I'm gonna finish it right now. Is don't be disheartened if you finish your bachelor's and you don't have the GPA that you need. Take the courses, retake the courses if you have to, and boost your GPA appropriately, and retake the MCAT if you have to get that goal score you want, and reapply. Don't ever say quit. Don't ever throw in the towel. If it's your dream, you want to do it, you do it. And if you need guidance, that's what we're here for.
Thank you, Dave and Zach, for sharing your stories. I think everybody here can definitely learn a lot from them. Can learn from each other. I'll say I'll be brief with my story. I was infantry officer in the 82nd Airborne, and then during my first tour of duty, was diagnosed with cancer and later medically retired. And so that was kind of what prompted me in order to pursue a career in medicine. I realized that serving in a uniform and serving in a white coat are exactly the same. They're a life of service. And so with some guidance and mentorship of my own, I was able to survive being a reapplicant as well. I rushed to failure my first cycle. It's true. I did the MCAT, I did all my prereqs, and I did a bunch of other things to try to get ready for the cycle. Did not work. I took my time the second time. I got a much better didactic foundation. I really took the time. I was not a medic, so I also spent time getting longitudinal patient care experiences and making sure, this is really the career that I wanted. I did that and was successful after that. And you'll find that theme throughout our organization. People that, continued marching on in the face of adversity, in the face of being rejected their first time. Hopefully, with enough time, we can help people to have the foundation the first time, so that way they don't have to go through the reapplicant cycle. But even if you have to, it's not the end of the road. So with that being said, kind of want to launch into what is SOFtoSOM and how do we address this niche? Because at the end of the day, Special Forces medics specifically, and all Special Forces, have so many things to bring to the field of medicine. And so that's what our organization fills, is we support United States SOF veterans in their journey to become physicians, the most capable physicians in the world. And so with that being said, so far in our program, we've had 22 mentees that have completed. Our average MCAT on arrival, 491, you can see the range. And with an average MCAT upon completing our program, 513. That's a 22-point jump. And so why is this important? Because for the people that have gone through and listened to our advice and let us help them, even if that means saying, okay, you're taking on too many things, let's take a step back. Let's do one thing or two things at a time well and create that foundation. We have 100% matriculation rate, which is nothing to scoff at. And that's something that we are going to continue. And you can see here are our scholars from the class of 2022 and the class of 2023. We've already got our class of 2024 underway. We're getting them MCAT materials. We're getting them paired mentors. We're getting them webinars. We're getting them all sorts of materials in order to help guide them through the path. So that way, all they have to do is just do it. And I'm really proud to be with this organization, with people like Dave and Zach and Ricky and Justin and everybody else that's a part of our organization. And with that being said, I just want to say thank you for attending, and we'll open the floor to any questions.
No questions.
I'll start with the first question. I've seen that a lot of medical schools are starting to just give a very blanket. We don't have any specific prerequisite courses. Looking at a more overall package or application. How important are the prereqs for success in school, or does that leave a window open to just concentrate on preparing for the MCAT as opposed to making sure that you have every last prerequisite organized before you get ready to apply?
James, thank you for your question. I'll answer it in two parts. First thing, I would say that the holistic application is a strength, because it doesn't mean that you have to have 40 credits of this and 9 credits of this. It allows you to prepare what you think is the best didactic foundation. With that being said, it's important to get the core sciences. So getting the biology, the chemistries, the physics, because those topics are going to be covered on the MCAT. And it's much easier to have learned those and taken exams, and then after that, having to go clean up the edges for the MCAT, rather than try to teach that material while you're trying to also study for the exam, because it is a difficult exam.
That's exactly what I did, by the way. It's not fun.
Zach and I have had many a Zoom meeting late at night going through this. The other thing I would say is that the fact that there's a lot of just recommended courses is another strength, because it allows you to pursue courses that essentially set you up for medical school. One of the things that when I did go back and reapply, I took physiology courses. I took microbiology courses. I took a graduate level immunology course. I took molecular genetics, all the different topics that are difficult during the preclinical years. I took those and was able to demonstrate to the admissions committee that I was ready from a didactic background on top of all the other things. So I hope that answers your question.
Could you elaborate on when you said I did that? What exactly did you mean when you said I did that?
Are you, James, you're talking to me? I think he's talking.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. So when I decided to go to med school and get out of the Army, one, I was retiring in the middle of the process of doing the whole med board and getting out while studying for the MCAT, while taking 5 classes at a time. And of those 5 classes, they were all the BCPM prereqs. So that's biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics, which will be weighted differently, not differently, but they'll be weighted more heavily on your actual med school application. So I was doing all those courses because I had a nonsense degree earlier. So I had to do all these science courses while I was prepping for the MCAT and while I was getting out. So to preface off of what Matt was saying earlier, if you can get those done ahead of time, it does 2 things for you. 1, it builds a good foundation. And 2, you need them those prereqs